This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, everybody. This is the monthly meeting for the Willington Economic Development Commission. It is Wednesday, October 14th, 6:30 p.m. In attendance, we have Commission Member Richard Maloney, Commission Member Bill Rankin, and myself, Richard Mindek. We also have present John Guskowski and Michael D'Amato from CME Engineering. Rick, remind me, I'm going to send you some minutes that I have. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get them out to everybody to look at. I feel like a majority of the minutes for this, for last month, are going to be the rail project, which Bill and yourself have already sent out to a majority of the group. So I will have that at a later time. And we're going to move right to zoning and Mike D'Amato.
So I thought it would be good to have as a rolling item on the agenda a zoning agent report, just so that if things are happening in the land use office, you guys will know. So I don't have anything necessarily huge to report other than that our office is working on and will be rolling out the first draft, sort of the first rough draft of changes to the zoning sign regulations to the Planning and Zoning Commission at the upcoming meeting for discussion purposes. We're not anywhere close to adoption, public hearing, or anything like that. We are working with our GIS vendor to basically create something on the GIS so that when you click on a property, it will link you to all the allowed uses for that zone, which should help realtors as they market parcels, because they'll now have a document that will show them what can be done on the property. That should be done probably this month. Those are probably the two major components of what we have kind of going on from a land use planning and zoning perspective.
Great, thanks, Mike. Anyone have any comments, questions?
I like that. Whoops.
Yeah,
we can hear you.
I like that
great.
idea.
I just want to let you know that Matt's on the call too, so he's also a commission member. Thank you, Mike. I mean, I think that's great. It's really difficult to amend these regulations, so just keep on plugging away. It's great.
All right, we'll move into
It's a great idea, Mike, to have the land uses on the property. I can tell you just from an example. I got 90 acres. I'm sorry. I got 40 acres that I'm trying to sell off Route 44, and the guy that was interested in buying it wanted to know what he could do with it, and he had to go down to town hall and go through the work associated with that rather than have a reference that he could look up. So again, I think, and Richard could probably expand a little bit on this, it's a great idea. It really is. Makes it easier.
Speaking about making it easier, John and Mike, do you want to talk about the development guide?
Sure. So way back, we sent out a rough draft outline. You all made comments to the extent that it made sense. And what I mean by that is some of the comments that we got back were conflicting. You know, one person thought this, the other person thought that. So in those cases, we tried to sort of use our judgment and figure out what direction to go. But otherwise, we incorporated a lot of what we talked about. It got sent around. Hopefully you all have a copy of it. The goal for this is that it'll be 11 by 17 printed. So you're seeing it kind of expanded, but when it folds, it'll open up to being front and back. What we tried to do, there you go. What we tried to do was we went through a lot of the market and demographic data for Willington to try to pull out what is most compelling and one of the things, and we need to actually adjust it, on the other page, you'll see the graph that we have. One of the things that we're going to tweak, we're going to add the numbers to the graph itself, but that graph on the left are the three major markets, of basically money being spent by Willington, not in Willington. So what the graph shows is those three areas, and the blue, of which there's really only one, is what Willington has and spends in Willington, and the rest, in millions of dollars, is money spent outside of Willington by Willington residents. So the large one there, food and beverage, Willington is spending $18 million a year, but less than 2 million of that is provided in town, which means they're going out of town to spend that money. And we can provide you with more information on what makes up those categories if you're interested, but the goal was to show that in these areas there is money being spent in other towns. And so, we tried to highlight the biggest numbers and go through and look at what was most compelling. And then outline, based on the POCD, the other major development sectors that are shown on the map, and tried to outline them in such a way that it was geared towards someone who was learning about the area. And so we looked through the POCD, we looked through the zoning regs, we looked through all the other plans that we have, and kind of provided little summaries of each of those villages, if you will, the Ruby Road area, West Willington, South Willington, and the other interchange, to try to make it clear that we do have these pre-identified areas where the town is willing to encourage development. And then we included in the bottom left some of the basic demographic information, but again geared towards spending. So we're showing annual spending on travel, annual spending on other sort of local services, and then just some of the basic median household income, age, and John can probably better explain the tapestry segments, but we didn't want it to be incredibly information intensive. We wanted it to be compelling and engaging, something that would print and color well, and not be overwhelming for someone who is either a realtor who's not a zoning expert, or a due diligence company, somebody who's not a land use attorney. And the other thing that I think is kind of, which we talked about before, and then I'll shut up, is that Willington is about, in comparing real estate taxes and costs, we are about 15% cheaper than all of our neighbors. And so for someone who's looking to locate in the general vicinity of 84, saving 15% per year on property tax might be something they want to know. So we've included that as well. I'll leave it there.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I mean, it's interesting as you go through this exercise and start to delve into some of the data, some of the apparent things that just jump out at you. You start to look at economics, and suddenly, everybody's spending money out of town. Property taxes are a bit cheaper here than elsewhere. So, those bullet points, to be able to digest those easily is great. Yeah, thank you, John and Mike. Appreciate it.
Sure, and again, this is the draft. We're happy to have additional comments. One thing I think I would mention, just on the map. Is the map up on people's screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. Is I would actually probably just swap on the left column of the map. I would probably just swap South Willington and Ruby Road, just to go from north to south on the actual guide. But and then on the map itself, I would probably, where we have exit 71, we'd probably want to indicate that that's also Ruby Road, just to maintain the labeling of it. And I think perhaps, Mike's point about the property taxes, I think is very compelling, and it may be something we want to highlight even more. I don't remember if we put it on the All right, we do say it on the back page under why Willington, and then we
Yep.
do say it on the inside. But I don't know if, I mean, we may just want to like put it in bold, put it underline, make it slightly larger font just to really make that point stand out, because I think that's a real difference maker. But those are my sort of editorial comments.
And the other thing I think that's really interesting is that, the Connecticut Data Collaborative showed that since 2007, Willington has seen a population increase, which is not what a lot of towns see. And also that over 60% of Willington residents are not cost burdened, which means they're not spending more than they should be on housing, which is also somewhat unique. And that means they have more walking around money. A lot of towns see a high percentage of folks that are cost burdened and they just spend everything they have on their house and nothing else, and they don't have that money. So, Willington residents, according to the data, are in a position to be able to spend money. And so, we've tried to outline that in a way that makes that compelling case that there is a market here, and there are some things that are different than Tolland, Mansfield, Ashford, Stafford, Coventry, which are the other towns that we looked at. And again, I think there's a fairly compelling case when you start looking at some of that data.
Great job, guys. It looks awesome. Are we going to be able to put that on the website? Is that already done, or?
No.
We'll have to do some tweaks. So once Kelsey adjusts some of the edits we've talked about, then we'll have the final draft.
Okay.
We can probably print some to have at town hall if and it ever opens kind of more full time. But yeah, we can link it on the website, push it to Facebook and the town's website and all that stuff.
Okay, probably work with Sam on that. Hi, Sam.
Hi. Is there a place that we can, other than screen sharing, that we can view this and see it? Did I miss it, or?
Mike, you
Sorry.
emailed it around, did you not?
I sent it to Rich with the agenda.
Okay. We can.
Okay, I may not have sent it out. That's my bad. I will send it. I can send it after the meeting.
It looks really good. It is font approved. I'm all about font. You have no idea. I mean, it really does. And I think even you follow the rules by doing a sans serif and a serif for the titles and a sans serif for non-titles. That's a graphic design rule. So that's good. It's really great.
Would it make sense to look up some of the educational advantages of coming to Willington? A lot of people who move here are coming for the education and the schools,
So yeah, I looked at all of those pieces of information. The tough part about it is in the areas of education, both in its residents and the districts, there's not as compelling of a diversion between where Willington is and the neighboring communities. They're Tolland.
You mean in terms of educational attainment of residents, Mike?
And the level of the quality of the school district.
Oh, okay. No, I mean, because EO is very good. I don't know if there's something we can say about that specifically. Obviously, it's not a differentiator with Ashford and Mansfield, but
right.
In general, the school district is strong.
Yeah, but the truth is that Connecticut has an extremely strong education system, and Willington is not at the top of it in Connecticut. It's just not. Even EO, and I do know this because of working with educational data in kids count for years. We think it's a great school, but if you relatively compare it across all of Connecticut, the scores are not that compelling, like you said. And also, I question whether that belongs in economic development, with the exception of education, like higher education being connected to higher pay and greater taxes. I don't really see how that relates. For people, yeah, but for businesses, isn't this geared toward like businesses trying to attract businesses?
Right. The idea is that this document will be involved in sort of the due diligence process of a site or development. And so there were, we looked at that. It just, to me, it wasn't being sensitive to not wanting to create a 10-page guide. We wanted to only include the most compelling data that we could come up with from a development perspective. And it just wasn't so compelling that, I think it was worth putting in as far as the space is concerned, which is why we left it out, but we did look at it. So I think what we can do is make some of these adjustments and finalize everything, run through it again, and then we'll have like a final copy which we can send around for sort of last look, and then we can distribute it and push it out sort of publicly. And if there's realtors in the area that we want to get it to, or anybody holding available commercial sites, property owners and stuff, we can also make it available there. So I think that's where we're at with the guide. And unfortunately, in about 3 minutes, I have to jump off because I have to assist with another meeting with the gentleman who's got some hearing disabilities. So I will have to leave, but John's going to cover the rest.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Anything
So,
else
yeah,
we're
so
missing? John?
No, so we'll send out a revision by the end of the week. And well, actually, Rich, if you can distribute what we've got.
Yep. No problem.
And then so we'll save our tweaks. We'll give people a couple more days to take a look and let us know if you have any editorial comments, and then we can finalize it next week.
Fair enough. Sounds good. Mr. Rankin, did you want to give us an update on the rail project? It seems like you guys have been busy this past month.
Well, on the 18th of September, and I think that was a Friday morning, if I'm not mistaken, Richard Maloney and I did a walkabout, and we were cleared to walk the property by Phil Desiato, who has a very zealous employee on site, and he takes his job serious. So we had to make sure we got security coverage there. But I'll allow Richard to expand on what he thought of the site. Our next step, this coming Monday, the 18th, myself and Phil Desiato, the owner of the property, and the New England Central Railroad commercial development team will be walking the site at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then we're going to, after that, we're going to sit down and talk a little bit of how the railroad is going to get involved. And we're not going to do any commercial discussions other than probably for Phil, introduce him to some of the other projects that have been successful on this type of property. So that's going to happen on the 18th of October. And then, the next Monday, yep, which would be the 16th. I think our next step after that, if everyone is in agreement from that commercial meeting, is the Genesee and Wyoming, who owns the New England Central Railroad, will be sending a team of engineers to the site, again, just to look at it and get a feel for possible development options. We walked the track. It has extensive frontage to the track, about 1,400 feet. And that's, I would say that's even longer, but Richard and I tried to measure an exact figure, and he came up with 60 and I came up with 14. So we'll just say about 1,500. How does that sound? I think John had a great idea, and I'll let John explain that a little bit further about coming up with a best case scenario of how the property could be used. And I'll supplement those discussions a little bit, John, by saying I think using the Palmer industrial site up in Palmer, Mass, of which my business was the second largest business on that site. Might be a great example, but we could throw that around. So Richard, why don't you explain a little bit what you saw about the property?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. You know, just great spending the day with Bill Rankin. That's always enjoyable. You know, what impressed me about the site was, as Bill had indicated, the frontage was extensive, and there's also a little spur that runs off of that track right there with the frontage. So that's a great advantage. I was struck by also the fact that the plaza, the old Santilli's Market, the Willington 2 Pizza Shop Plaza, you know, it abuts this entire site, and it's quite a large parcel. So, you know, incorporating them as we start to move this along, and thinking through a little bit about what John had said, that you might want to think through creating some sort of a partnership, a working group that can digest some of the issues that are going to come up and try to find solutions as we move this thing along. But, you know, really impressed with Bill Rankin's knowledge and contacts and ability. And I think it's very viable, and it should be something that we put some effort into. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Richard. The after we get the engineers from the railroad involved, what I liked about the property, having done this 2 or 3 times in my career, is the owner is at the backside of his development project. He's done with it. Right now, he's remediating, he's excavating, but he's truly turning it into a level site. And the fact that he's on the backside of the project is even good, simply because of his investment over the years. He started working it in '77, and he's excited about having a viable exit strategy. And we can get into, because they with railroads, depending on how motivated they are, it's the best time to talk to them, and they're motivated right now. So after we have the engineers come in and say, yes, it's viable, and it's got a lot of options on both sides of the track. Richard and I were quite pleased to see that there's options on both sides of that track, and that spur that he was talking to about is A, long, and B, it's very well maintained. And that would be a startup cost for the project, because one of these parks have to have an area off the main where they can store cars. So there's a substantial savings right there, depending on how it's applied. So we go back to the engineers and the site visit, then we get on the railroad's website. And believe me when I say, a company that owns 108 railroads has a lot of deals that come across their desk every day. Then we would do a specific, what I call commercial grind, which is to get into the Class 1 railroads that would find this area attractive. And there's 2 of them, the Canadian National Railroad and the Canadian Pacific Railroad. And again, the timing is right with them, because they've dropped the gloves and they're going at it right now over the next 3 or 4 years. One is opening up a port north of Quebec City with the province of Quebec. That's the CN. And the other one is opening up a port in Searsport, Maine, as well as developing the port of St. John. And they're preparing for raw materials to come into the country. So again, all these we have a seller who's motivated. We have a development partner who would see this as an area that can be an option for one of their flows coming out of Canada from offshore. There's just a lot of things adding up here, and those are good things. Again, it's a 4-year project. This is not something that's going to have, I believe, merit much before 24, 25.
Guys, after walking the site, is there a chance you could put an access road out of Santilli's or 32? Did you mention that, Rick? I didn't hear what you said there.
Yeah, I didn't
No,
talk
we
that
didn't.
through too much, but absolutely with the size of the Santilli's and Willington 2 Pizza and lots and more, the size of that parcel, along with access on the other site, other side of the track where the diner is, I think there's going to be some room to exit and enter that site from the 72 area there. Yes, that's correct, Rich. I believe that's right.
Okay, so then, I mean, you know, we wouldn't want to displace any other businesses or disrupt them. However, it does seem like River and Rail, I still call it Track 9, by the way, River and Rail might be either displaced or maybe we could help them figure out another site or something in the Santilli Plaza or something, you know. Certainly is a place where everybody comes together in town, so.
Well, the railroad has a right-of-way that measures 40 feet from the center of the track to the east and to the west.
Okay.
And that's not enough room for a road, but it does help in the discussions of exactly how much land you might need on either side of the track. Believe me when I say that the railroad makes everything from a safety standpoint idiot-proof, and that's because it's a very dangerous business. But that's how the discussions could start.
Okay.
So can people see the map on the screen here?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So these two, and I'll zoom out a little bit. These two parcels are the Phelps Plaza, and you see how far back it goes, lot 11. And then I believe, well, then down here, there's one lot in the middle, but obviously it would just go along the tracks there. All this down here is Besiato.
Let's see.
He said his property goes to the
Who owns that?
first tree line.
Who is that?
His property goes to the first tree line on the right side. He also owns 9 acres.
Yes.
9 acres.
See,
on
I
the
know.
other side.
The locks are Phelps. She's a Phelps. And because when I was growing up, Santilli's Market didn't exist, and River and Rail was called Phelps Market. So we used to, that was like one huge thing. We used to use it for Girl Scout camping because Mrs. Locke, who is a Phelps, was our troop leader. So Mr. Santilli's was Phelps. But anyway, so it looks like they still own that in between parcel right there that you were talking about. So you're feeling that you're thinking that we may have to displace the business of, because just to have access, like how wide does there need to be? Because, you know, remember when there used to be a lumber yard there, you could go back pretty far. I can see it right now. I'm looking at it, you know.
Yep.
So you're looking at it as a throughway to get to the other property, but I guess I'm missing how that would have to displace the business.
Not saying it would displace them, but it might alter traffic flow within there. Might be requirements from the rail, like Bill was saying, that, you know, there might be different requirements that might, you know, indirectly displace them, and it may not be the best place for them to be to bring people together. I don't know if you want a lot of people parking in that area if there's going to be 40, 50 trucks a day going in and out of there, you know.
Right. So, also, would we have to do a you know, like I know Kids Kingdom, they had to do a study, you know, traffic study to find out whether that was a good spot. Would all of that have to be done at the expense of, like, whose expense would that be?
Yeah, that would be the applicant's expense. But that's a traffic study is a drop in the bucket for a project of this magnitude. It would have to go to the State Traffic Commission. but because anything over 100,000 square feet or 200 parking spots goes to the Office of State Traffic Authority. But that's relatively minor. I would worry about in terms of displacement or disruption, just the number of trucks that would have to go past the businesses would be more disruptive than the actual, if we need to put another signal or a blinking light, at Tallinn Turnpike at the driveway or something like that. That's relatively minor. That, development like that happens all the time.
Just trying to mitigate and foresee some of the potential issues that may come up from the general public, and certainly trucks coming out on 32 and going down the hill there past Dollar General. I don't think that's ever going to fly. So just trying to come up with a different way to reroute them out of that site.
Hold that map right there, John. Everybody see where Ruby's is?
Yeah.
If you look where Ruby's lumber is, and then the land that comes out right there, yeah. Still Desiato owns 9 acres on that side of the track.
Hmm.
And if continue to page further down towards the original pit, John, would you? Keep going. All right, right there. You see where the pit comes up to where the track is, and then it almost looks like it's been cleared on the left side of the track. There's another 25 acres there that he cleared. That's exactly right there. He cleared the gravel out there in the early 80s, and it's not too far down off of the tracks. So we've got another 25 acres of land that could be used there, and I'm thinking that would be a great staging area if indeed it's an intermodal project, where they actually unload the containers, put them on chassis, and then put them into a staging area, and the trucks come in and clear them out over a 2 or 3 or 4 day period. So there's a lot of options there. The access road that we're trying to come up with is a way to keep the trucks off the 32, and it's just something that I know it has to be addressed. But I think first thing we ought to concentrate on right now is making sure that we have an interested party and look at these things.
This is really great, guys. Obviously, big project's going to take a time, but I think it's going to work out really well for the town of Willington.
And
I always like to throw a probability on it, and I always keep the probability very low in the beginning so people don't get excited. But I would say it's probability of 1 out of 10 right now is no more than a 1.5. How's that sound?
Sounds very promising.
And my only thought, I don't know, Bill, if this is what you're referring to, but my only thought from a zoning or municipal standpoint is we not worry too much about what the town current regulations, current incentives, all that stuff, because this is, a completely unique project for Willington and probably for anywhere in Northeast Connecticut. So we shouldn't worry too much about what the rules say. We should sort of let the vision sort of dictate what we would like, how we'd like to shape things. Just because this is not an opportunity that comes around all the time. So it's not something that the town would have sort of already zoned for. So I, just to sort of maintain flexibility about that and let the zoning be a little bit of a trailing issue.
I think you're exactly right. I would say that if we need an example, my contacts and relationships with the town of Palmer, Mass. is still very strong, and I'm sure that they would allow us and would participate with us to talk about revenue generation and jobs that have been created, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's a great idea, John.
Anybody else have any other comments, questions?
John, is there anything that we should do proactively to push it along that you can think of?
I mean, I think there are things, but I kind of want to take Bill's lead on this. I think at the point, I think it, the town stuff, the town incentives, whether there's some sort of tax abatement or something like that, is kind of work around the margins. I think it needs to pencil out for the big guys. The developers, the railroads need to think that this makes sense. And I think the town doing some sort of 10-year ramp up tax abatement will maybe help sell the town's willingness to partner, but that's not going to make the difference between a go or a no go for a company like CN. So I would say I would take Bill's lead on just the concept first, and then if they're interested, then we can start making sure the town can be an active partner. That's my thought anyway.
I could use my own experience on that. 35 years ago, we did our first one. My partner and I literally had to put our house up, if you know what I mean. The rail was interested in having you as a partner, but they thought they were doing you a favor. And where it's at right now is they see this opportunity to tap into markets that are off rail. And it's been a great franchise growth within the rail to handle products that are just not rail oriented, retail goods, grain, food, etc. And in order for that to happen, you have to have a transload partner and a final mile truck partner. So now the rail wants to put these up, and rather than asking entrepreneurs like myself to go in the hock, they sometimes run them themselves and do a terrible job at it, or they sometimes fund people who can do it and provide the land and a lease to do it. So that the rail right now sees these. The rail right now is in need of a project like this on the New England Central Railroad, because the ones that are there, like myself, are sold out. So again, I think we've got a lot of good stars lining up. We've identified Richard's grandmother doesn't want to have 32 with trucks on it, so we're trying to find an alternative.
Appreciate that. All right, great update. Move on to new business. Do we have any new business? I just want to let you guys know my phone's about to die, so I might cut out. Before it does, I just wanted to thank everybody. I hope everyone got my email. I'm actually really, really bummed. This is the one thing about moving to another town. I was pretty committed to the EDC. Got it going again with the help of Mr. Maloney. But sometimes, I guess, I was just having a really hard time finding a house in town. And it got to a point where I had to have a place to live, and found the perfect house over in Coventry. So doesn't mean I won't be back again, but I'll definitely keep tabs on what's going on. And if there's anything I can do to help, feel free to call me at any time, and look forward to seeing what you guys do.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Rich.
I didn't get to work with you more. I'm kind of sad, but I'm really happy for you and finding a house and everything. I saw the update, and I think that's great.
Appreciate it very much.
And it's a hard
Rich,
decision, but it's definitely the right one, Family first.
Rich, not to pick nits with you on your last day as chairman, but you missed an item of old business, which was a South Willington Village discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I'll let you if you need to go, I'll let you go. But I just wanted to check in with the commission. I think that this, now that we're just about done with the development guide and we're still kind of waiting for things to sort of unfold with the rail project. One of I think the next priorities that we were talking about was kind of creating sort of a flexible zone or a floating zone or special development district for South Willington Village to encourage some some higher density, sort of flexible but well-designed development down there. And the thought was that EDC would take the lead in kind of drafting a proposal, which we would then sort of present to planning and zoning for their input and comment, so that we didn't have to sort of wait on them to kind of get around to it, that we could kind of push the topic a little bit, because that's been a sort of an identified area of potential growth.
I think that's the next thing on the agenda, John. I think it's just a terrific idea to push that forward and start to have more intimate discussions with members of the community down there, figure out kind of what they want to see happen, and then just take that forward. Yeah, great.
So then I guess just the procedural question is, how would you like to manage that? Obviously, Mike and I would figure on doing the brunt of the actual drafting of some proposed regulations, or a sort of an overlay area, but wanted to make sure that we did have some participation from EDC, and if we wanted to have sort of a community meeting first about that.
Yeah.
When you talk about
Go ahead,
a
Sam.
community meeting, are you talking about a community meeting with the residents from that area to get their input on what they want? Have you considered identifying them and sending out like an email with a questionnaire or something like that they might have, like, they could either answer or just offer them some type of small reward to get the the feedback from them? I don't know exactly what direction you're going with it, but I mean, I could help with, you can use a Google form to create a questionnaire that'll populate or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we have SurveyMonkey also that we could put something together. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously in the time of COVID, it's sort of difficult to get kind of people together. If it might be more useful to try to distribute, like a SurveyMonkey or Google form type input. And then, yeah, there's a couple of ways of distributing that, certainly, if that
I guess
made
it would
most sense.
help me if you guys could, I know what I think should happen down in South Willington Village or whatever, like a vision, but what is your plan? You were talking about just now saying that, you would push this proposal forward first and then work on the zoning from the other side, right? So what is the EDC vision for this area? That would help me a lot.
Right. I mean, I'll take a stab at that, John. Historically, the problem, Sam, has been that there's multiple uses in the village, predominantly residential use. So, for example, the mill is a residential use. Whenever they want to pull a business into the mill, they have to come to Zoning Board of Appeals and get a special permit. So I think to have more of a retail commercial use that's allowed in that area, and also some sort of a multifamily footprint that could be applied there too, so that you could have some different housing options in the village makes sense. So looking at the different interests that exist there, and then trying to apply some sort of a zoning overlay, taking all those interests into account, is what we had been thinking about.
And the other element, in addition to the retail commercial, is housing density. It's still sort of zoned, despite the relatively speaking higher density of sort of South Willington Village there. It's still zoned relatively low density, and we know, well, there's the condos sort of alongside the river, sort of right on the Tallinn line, or is that Tallinn? Yeah. And then there's that sort of office building that's right across from the mill, that is sort of very interested in doing some multifamily concept, but the zoning currently doesn't really allow housing at that density, or really much higher than 1 unit per acre. And so being able to tweak the zoning to allow a higher density of residential settlement down there would be good. And the general approach of an overlay or sort of either a floating zone or an overlay zone is basically, it allows for a tremendous amount of flexibility on the part of the developer and on the part of the town by basically having a master plan process. That it's sort of a two-part process. The first part is you submit a master plan of what you want to do, and that allows you to sort of land the overlay zone, and then you would get a special permit to actually construct the details of the master plan, so that the town has actually a lot of leverage to allow or disallow the proposal. There's really nothing sort of guaranteed as of right, that it really needs to be kind of master planned and it really needs to fit. But that would be the approach. There's sort of the special development district approach that a lot of communities use.
Does that make sense, Sam?
For the most, yes, it did. It was really helpful. Thank you. The only question I have, you just talked about the master plan and then the overlay plan. The town master plan is already in existence, is what you're saying? And then we're trying to create an overlay plan for that area?
Yeah, no. So when I use master plan, I'm really referring to a specific site. The town's quote unquote master plan is the plan of conservation and development. And we would want to obviously make sure that the types of uses and the scale would be appropriate to the town's plan of conservation and development.
Okay, all right, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so there's sort of big M master plan and little M master plan, and what we're talking about is a sort of a site by site little M master plan.
Okay.
That would include, things like design details, architectural renderings,
okay,
stuff like that. So we would know what it looks like before the town kind of said yes to anything.
All right, I just have one further question and then I'll be done with my questions. And it's about the jury's site. Well, I call it jury's. It was you guys were talking about a brewery being placed there. Right on the corner across from Fisher Hill.
Okay, let me bring up.
There's a big build.
I'll speak to Jerry's. Yeah, and it's sitting there vacant right now, which is unfortunate. So I think what John had been envisioning is that if we can make that use to be residential and higher density, that might be multifamily there, more reasonably priced, which makes sense for that area. There was a furniture delivery business that was going to go in there, and it just wasn't appropriate trying to come out of that site,
right,
that bad corner and the like. So it hasn't been an adequate development site. We'll have to overlay, as John says, special development, plan, and then that may
Can you clarify
help
which site we're talking about? Is it this site right here?
Yeah, right. Yep.
That's it. Yep, exactly.
Okay, yeah. So that's Mike and I have met with that owner a couple of times, and her inclination would be multifamily, but I'm sure she's willing to listen to other development concepts.
Well, the only reason I was asking about that is because you were talking about the master plan and then an overlay, or the little M master plan and an overlay, right? And one of the issues you brought up last time was that the people in that area would have to approve, like, for instance, a restaurant or a brewery or something to that effect. So I was just wondering, when we are talking about drawing up the plan, does the retail and other businesses automatically, is restaurant like a different designation basically, or the brewery, would that be a different designation than what we're talking about? And I know you said you have people to do that, like drawing up that plan. I'm just saying, like, you could involve, if you give me information and tasks, I would be happy to do them. That's all I'm trying to say.
Right. Well, so
especially finding data, finding information, and doing research, that would be like my strength areas to help out with that.
So yeah, so I think in part one of my reasons for wanting to kind of move this discussion forward is to kind of get a sense of who's interested in kind of digging in on this a little bit deeper. And so thank you, Sam. My thought on things like, you know, restaurant or brewery or multifamily or something like that, the way, again, the overlay would work. And what it may be useful for me to send you guys sort of an example regulation from another town of how this sort of master plan overlay kind of thing works. But you basically lay out a whole laundry list of potential development options that would include, you know, commercial, retail, restaurant, hospitality, you know, hotel, brewery, you know, light manufacturing if that's something we wanted, mixed use, and list all of the things that could possibly be included in a master plan development, and then kind of then leave it to the end user, leave it to the developer to within those parameters kind of cobble together their business plan and their development plan, which they would then present to the town for a review.
Well, that's a great overview, John. Thank you so much for your work on that. I think we're interested, and let's pursue it.
Okay, so what I can do is maybe Sam, you and Mike and I can have a conversation a little bit about putting together kind of a community questionnaire, and then we'll also share some example overlay regulations, so you can kind of get a sense of how this could be structured inside the zoning regulation.
Great.
If that makes sense.
That sounds good to me. I wonder if that's what they use. You know, the art site in Stafford, right at the base of Main Street, when you come in, Dave Bacchiacchi built up that.
Oh
whole mill.
yeah. That
Yeah,
sort of
I was
mixed-use
actually helped him with that project, just in terms of like recruiting people, and just, it was like a huge empty building when I went in there. I would like find old antique sinks and stuff like that on Craigslist for installation. I rented a space there for a while, and it was definitely like that. It was mixed use with different, you know, I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but I could definitely speak to how that worked.
I think it's a similar
residential and people living and working on top of each other, in my opinion, doesn't work. But it would be great to have like a little breakout group. That's what the kids call it, a breakout group, a breakout Zoom meeting or something. And we could make a time where the three of us could just meet and talk about those things if you want.
That would be great. Yeah, and I think, I mean, the Stafford thing is a good example of sort of a flexible mixed use space, but I think that's a little bit more of a reuse kind of thing, where they just kind of blow open the potential end users, and this would be something a little bit more sort of ground up, like, you know, building new things rather than using existing space. Although obviously we would want to expand the existing uses. So as Rick was saying, you know, you don't have to come in for a special permit every time the mill wants a new tenant.
Correct.
We'd want to open that up also. So I actually think the Stafford example would probably be useful for the mill site.
The mill,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Whatever happened with the grad student resident project? The gentleman who came in to visit with us, that had to be close to a year ago.
Yeah. So that's still moving forward. He unfortunately for him, I think, sort of against our advice, went ahead and purchased the land before he did his full due diligence on it. And probably just about a month ago, they finally got out and flagged the wetlands. And unfortunately, what he bought was, I would say, mostly either wet or ledge. So the developability of that land is going to be real tricky. I think it's still developable, but he has to rethink, I think, his density and his siting of it, and will probably end up needing some variances about, you know, some minimum buildable acreage and things like that. But it's still happening. He is still pursuing it. But it's a little bit, you know, more tricky. There's probably a reason that land was available at the price it was. You know, and he just, I think he probably overpaid a little bit, but is still gonna try to make something of it. So you'll still see you'll see more.
when you say, was it still zoned one resident or one house per 2 acres, or was it changed to one house per 1 acre?
That's a question for Mike. I can check, but yeah, I think it's approximately an acre, but I don't know for sure.
Okay. Well, I'd just be interested to see if it was amended. That would be a good thing.
Well, that sounds great. So we'll put Sam and John on the agenda for the next meeting to kind of report back, and let's.
That's 2 months. 2 months away.
Next month.
Oh, did I miss a meeting?
We probably canceled September.
Okay.
Yeah, but not November yet.
Okay.
Yep. So we'll try to meet in November. One issue that I had, is that it, John? Are you done with South Willington Village?
Yeah, unless anyone else has anything to add, that's it.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much, John, and Sam, you volunteering to help a little bit on that project. That's great. One deficiency that I'm kind of struggling with on the committee is we're not doing too much outreach. We're not talking to the small businesses in town and trying to get feedback and maybe get more membership on the commission. So I'll task myself and report back next month. Just try to reach out to some of these small businesses and see what their needs are. Try to take the list of businesses that we've developed quite well and just call them and talk to them and see how they're doing and see what their needs are. And then I'll report back to the commission next month and see how I do.
That's great. Rick, do you have the latest business guide or the business directory that we put together?
I think I do. I think it sits there on the town website. Is that right, John?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's right.
Yep. Sounds good.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. Happy to oblige. Anything else that we have tonight?
I just want to talk a little bit about the website and the, tasks that you guys have said you want me to do, right? One of them is Facebook, but nobody has made me an administrator of the Facebook page. So just out there, whoever, you have to have liked the page, which I have liked it. And then it's another admin will be able to give me administrative powers or whatever. That's how, you just find it in the about section or something like that. So I don't know who manages that page right now.
Well, I'll email Mike and I'll ask Mike to, and I think it was Kelsey too that set it up. I mean, I have administration authority on the page. I did put a link up there the other day.
So you can make me an administrator. All you have to do is, and we're friends, so it might be easier. So
so I'll do that.
Yeah, you just go in there somewhere. I think it's under the about, or just look at the page of it. They hide it, they really do, but it'll say like admins and moderators and show
Rick,
you where
I can
you
just,
can add.
I'll just send a quick message to Kelsey to add Sam. It's easy.
Okay, that sounds good. Now, one problem, Sam, I have with this Facebook page is how do we boost this page? In other words, it's a commercial page, it's a business page. And then you get the link out there, but then you don't have really any engagement.
It's content. That's what I was going to ask about, because you said that you find a lot of content.
I have.
I thought you said that you have content, or you find. Well, just send it my way. Just send it to me, to the email, and then if you want, what I can do, what I used to do at one of my jobs where I managed their Facebook page was I had a Google Calendar, which I shared with them, with my boss, because she wanted to kind of like vet everything that I was going to do. And also it's just a way for us to communicate. So I do know a lot about Facebook. So what you would want to do is probably like post regularly, not spam 8 in one day or something. So we'll have a regular posting schedule. And then basically what creates a boost and what makes other people look at it is engagement. So you want people to like it. You want them to share. So you might ask them a question like, oh, here's a really great article about blah, blah, blah. What businesses do you see coming to Willington, or whatever. Maybe you frame it as a question so the people who like the page will comment. So the more likes and comments that you get, the more the algorithm boosts it for the people who already like the page to see it. So it's basically like, the phrase, it takes money to make money. it takes likes to get likes. It's kind of how it goes. The more engagement you get, the more engagement you get. So I have no problem managing it, sharing the calendar with you. So if you send me content, then I would just show you the calendar, like, all right, I'm going to post this on Wednesday. I'm going to post this on Friday. And I put the links usually in the calendar. If you don't want to go that far, that's fine. I could just take it for a while and then using your content, see if we get more engagement. The page has insights and I can like, I mean, it even prints out for you. It'll print out engagement over like a month or something like that. So why don't you just start by sending me content and I'll try to manage it for a bit and then just do a comparison from a month to the next. And I mean, really, we're just looking for more engagement to begin with.
Yep, that sounds
I would
great.
say.
And, you know, offline we can talk, Sam. And why don't we start with a couple of pieces of content and then we'll talk about them and get them up and see how we do. Great.
Yeah, so you can either send them to me through Messenger or whatever, through regular email.
Thank you.
And yeah, and then the other thing I just wanted to say was that I got my password and everything for the, you know, for the website. I have familiarity with WordPress. I have my own WordPress page, so it's complete comfort level with adding and managing using the theme that has already been created. So Kelsey gave me a mild tutorial about how to add a business. The only thing is, I guess I just need to be informed by like how to find that out, or you guys just said it was on the town page, or somebody can keep me abreast of things that you might want to put, because I am a new member. So it's not like I don't feel that I know the mission and the goal. Like, I don't feel like I know enough to just start, you know, being like, here's what Sammy wants to put on the page. You know what I mean? So I just kind of want that little, you know, umbrella, being under a safe umbrella, like with you finding the content or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I definitely feel like having the page and the Facebook page be fluid and engaging is important for the communication aspect, for the outreach and stuff like that. You don't want it to be stagnant and never change, because then it's not interesting.
Yep. Well, that sounds great, Sam. You know, we were fearful that you would run away screaming after the last meeting, but you're back again, so that's terrific. So yeah, we'll engage offline and start getting those things going. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, anything else?
Have a good night.
That's great. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Sam. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, John.
Thanks,
Okay,
Rick.
talk to
You're
you
welcome.
soon.